Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Hack, and in this video you're checking out one of the strongest and best solo builds in New World. This is the War Priest, a combination Warhammer and Lifestaff build with insane damage and crowd control, along with amazing defenses, survivability, and self-healing. This build can do just about it all, and it's incredibly rewarding to play. Basically, the more time you put into maximizing your gear, your perks, and your skills, the more powerful this build gets. And we'll go through everything you need to know to make it work, starting right now. Let's start this build off with the basic attribute setup for the War Priest. First, you will definitely want to invest most of your starting points into strength. Not only will this increase your basic attack damage and Warhammer skill damage, but as we'll show later on in the Warhammer passives, more damage on this build actually equals more healing. You also get some fantastic melee passes from investing into strength, including increased light attack and heavy attack damage, which is actually a very big part of this build as well. So strength on your gear or strength from your attribute points is going to be the best way to go on this build, at least for now. Another option we could go with in the future is to spec entirely into focus and put an amber gem into the Warhammer. Now, I know there have been some inconsistency with amber gems lately in different tiers, doing the wrong amounts of damage, so I decided to steer away from this route in my own playthrough, at least for now. Keep in mind, a full focus spec may actually be the better option later on, especially once those gems are fixed, because you will get more healing from your Lifestaff abilities on this setup. From what I've seen though, going full strength is really not an issue even when it comes to healing. With perks like Blessed and Revitalizing Beacon, we can still get a lot of healing power even with very little focus. Now for your secondary attribute, you will definitely want some Constitution as usual, as this can increase your healing from potions by 20% and also increase your maximum health by quite a bit. For the full breakdown on attribute points, make sure to check out the written guide for all the details. As far as consumables on this build, you of course will want the basic rations to start with. This gives you a 1% health recovery for about 20 minutes or so, as well as bonus health per second for about 20 seconds as long as you're not taking damage. Keep in mind you can stack this basic food with other attribute-focused foods. You can get bonus constitution, bonus strength, and you also get another health recovery bonus as well, meaning you can have 2 health recoveries stacked at the same time. Finally, in terms of potions, yes, you will want quite a few health potions on this build. The weak potions are fine to start with, but you will want to upgrade those as soon as possible with strong and even the powerful health potions. These will give you a nice burst heal when you need it, and those heal for even more if you're at 50 constitution and above. Keep in mind, if you have faction points that you are not spending, you can buy these fairly cheaply from the faction vendors as well. All right, so let's go over the equipment next, talking about weapons and armor, and let's talk about the armor first, actually. So I am a heavy armor equip load currently on this build. I think you can make this work just as easily on a medium equip load, especially if you are doing like group content where you have like a tank and a healer. Medium should be fine. You'll get the extra damage and the extra healing. But if you do play primarily solo, you're going to have a lot more survivability if you choose heavy armor. And that's obviously because we have better resistances, both physical and elemental. Plus, you can do more blocking. So it's just a really great all-around choice. So currently spec'd for heavy armor right now. Now in terms of what sets and what attributes you want to look out for, like we talked about in the attribute section, you can choose kind of 2 ways to go about this. You could go more strength focused. That's going to scale your damage really high on your Warhammer. Or you could spec more into the focus attribute itself and then get something like an amber gem. Like I said earlier, amber gem scaling is a little bit wonky right now, so I just went mostly with full strength on my gear. Some constitution and some focus are totally fine. You can mix and match your pieces here, and then you can make up whatever you're missing through your actual attribute points. So sets that will be good for this soldier set. This gives you full strength. The knight set gives you strength and constitution together. Armor of the Sage gives you more of that focus attribute. So there's a lot of good options here. Now, I will stress that perks make a huge difference on this build. You can see a lot of the armor pieces that I've picked. The gear score is not the greatest, but I still have them because of the perk. And here's one that's really good. Sundering Shockwave. So Shockwave is going to apply rend, reducing the target's damage absorption by 14% for 10 seconds. and this scales up based on the gear score of the item. But Rend is basically a debuff, and we do get bonus damage on the Warhammer against targets that are debuffed. So this perk actually synergizes really well for Warhammers. Perks in New World aren't always the best. Some of them are actually kind of terrible, but the Warhammer ones are not bad. Here's another one that I do depend on, especially when I'm fighting solo for survivability. You can see my legs here have Leeching Path of Destiny as the perk. And this heals you for 23% of the damage dealt from the Path of Destiny skill. Now what's great about this, and we'll look at it more in the skills section in a minute, Path of Destiny can hit multiple targets. So each target that you hit is going to give you multiple heals back, 23% for each target that you deal damage to. If you have 3-4 targets lined up, this can easily heal you for 1k, 2k health every time you use it, which is really nice for soloing. Make sure you don't use this ability when you're at full health, otherwise the heal that you get from this perk is completely wasted. So Sundering Shockwave, Leeching Path of Destiny, I think those are the two main Warhammer perks that you're going to want to look out for and try to get those spec'd on your armor. Now, there are also very good perks for the Life Staff, and one of the best is right here. It's called Revitalizing Beacon. Using Beacon increases your healing power on yourself for 12 seconds. So this is an extra buff you can basically get. You can see it's only for yourself heals, but if you're already solo, then this is awesome. It doesn't make any difference. I definitely recommend looking out for pieces with the Revitalizing Beacon perk. One thing that I've started doing with all these perks is I'm putting them on my armor instead of my weapons. It's interesting that New World actually lets you put weapon perks on armor. I'm not quite sure why they do that, but it's actually good to do this if you can. That way you're going to save room on your weapons for even better perks. So we can look at those next. So on the Warhammer here, a nice perk you might want to pick up is the Enchanted perk. This gives your light and heavy attacks more damage, about 8% here at blue quality. It just goes up from there. And once we talk about the skills more, you'll see why this works so good. We're basically very focused on heavy attacks on this build. Heavy attacks do tons of damage, and you're getting buffed by almost another 10% if you can get a Warhammer with Enchanted. It's really good. And I do have the Opportunist trait on here, so that comes from Emerald Gems, a cut emerald. If you want the most damage, you'll want the Pristine, that's tier 4 cut emerald. But this makes you do 20% bonus damage against targets with less than 30% health. And you'll see this synergizes really good with the Warhammer as well. We have a similar passive in the Warhammer skill trees. Tons and tons of execute damage on this build. As far as the Life Staff, no gem on this one yet. You definitely want a Life Staff with focus if you can get it. And the Blessed perk. Interesting thing about Blessed, as far as I know, is you can't get it on armor. You can only get it on your weapon, specifically the Life Staff. So that's why I went with Revitalizing Beacon on the armor. This way I get both. I get my buff to Beacon, more healing done there, and I get the Blessed buff. So I have, 20% bonus healing here, plus 23% bonus healing here. These can go up even higher the more gear score you have on these pieces. This is a lot of bonus healing, you guys, when we're on the Life Staff. It really makes up for not having a lot of points into focus and for being a heavy armor build instead of a light armor build. The healing on this build is super strong if you get the right perks. So definitely watch out for those on the trader. Try to get the best perks possible. I'll have more information in the written guide if you want to check that out. All right, let's talk about the skills next, starting with the Warhammer, which is obviously our main offensive weapon on this build. You can see we're focused here in terms of abilities on the Crowd Crusher skill tree. So we do have a lot of passives, really great passives actually, over on the Juggernaut side. So we'll talk about those in a minute. But you do definitely want to start over here on Crowd Crusher and pick up your main 3 abilities. So Clear Out. This is basically a huge knockback, 4-meter knockback, plus deals 115% weapon damage. This has a nice cleave, like it's almost 360 degrees. It's really wide arc on this. And you can also move while you are using this ability. So keep that in mind. You can kind of aim this knockback where you need it. It's really good. Combined with that, we do have Shockwave. This is going to be our AoE ground smash. It applies stun and deals 80% weapon damage. So not a lot of damage on this one. It's mostly for the CC, and it is quite good at that. And then our third ability, Path of Destiny. This strikes forward on the ground, and it does pretty good damage in a straight line out from you. Again, you can aim this, make sure you get as many targets in the line as possible. All 3 abilities are really good. I just want to point out that actually your strongest ability, not really an ability, but your most damage on the Warhammer is actually going to come from a charged heavy attack. 170% weapon damage on the charged heavy. And then we have multiple passive buffs that are going to do even more damage. So I like to think of Warhammer as having like a fourth skill, and that is your heavy attack, which is just huge on this build. So I definitely would pick up these 3 abilities, use your first 3 skill points there, and then I would actually go over into Juggernaut and start picking up some of these heavy attack focus passives. So Hammer Time, gain Empower on heavy attack, increasing your attack damage by 20% for 4 seconds. This basically means you want to charge a heavy attack before you do any of these abilities, because you're going to get 20% bonus damage on each of those. After you get that, Hardened Steel is also incredibly good, you guys. Adds grit to your heavy attacks and grants a 20% damage reduction while the heavy attack grit is active. So grit is basically resistance against stagger and knockback. You can't be knocked down basically while you're in the middle of your heavy attack on this build, which is really powerful, especially as you get towards some more late game monsters who have a lot of stun and knockback effects. This build is incredibly good against those type of monsters for this basic passive. So pick this one up next. Then we have Contemption on targets under 30% HP. Increase your damage done by heavy attacks by 15%. Yeah, this is excellent. Remember, we also have an Emerald Gem on our Warhammer that's 20% bonus damage when a target is below 30% health. So you can see the bonus damage on this build starts to rack up really quickly. Then we're getting Quick Recovery, cooldowns reduced by 7% with your heavy attacks. And then Power Through Pain for 1 second after taking damage, deal 35% extra damage. That's a massive buff. Basically, you want enemies to hit you while you're in the middle of your heavy attack swing, because if they do, you're dealing an extra 35% damage. That's on top of all the other buffs that we have for heavy attacks. So this is really good. I like how the Juggernaut tree definitely buffs those heavy attacks just by picking up each of these passives. I would say once you get through those 5 passives, then you can come back here and start filling out some of the upgrades for your normal abilities. I do have Shockwave maxed out right now. You get Frailty. This causes Weaken, so that decreases the damage dealt from a target by 10%. And then Meteoric Crater is quite good. This just increases the range of Shockwave to 4 meters, so that's up from 3 meters. Slightly more range on your stun here. I would get Seismic Waves for Path of Destiny. This is going to add a nice stagger to that ability. And then Stimulated Reduction is going to reduce the cooldown. So definitely upgrade this all the way. I think you could get the next 2 upgrades for Clear Out as well. Power Cleaner is going to give you Fortify, so that's 10% bonus defense. And then Clean and Refresh does reduce the cooldown. And then the last 2 passives I would recommend here, Concussive Impact, 15% damage against targets affected by Warhammer debuffs. So that again, that's more damage. You can get that from Shockwave. And then this is really important as well. Prevailing Spirit gives you 35% of damage dealt as health when using a Crowd Crusher ability. So all of these main skills that you have are going to give you 35% health back once you have that unlocked. That's really important, especially when playing solo. But that's the basic setup I have right now. For more information on the final loadout for this, definitely check out that written guide to our website. Link will be down in the description. All right, let's check out the Life Staff next. And this is where a lot of our survival in terms of just keeping our health topped off comes into play. We have lots of passive healing skills here, starting with Orb of Protection. We get Fortify for 20 seconds. This also heals for 10% weapon damage and also does AoE damage. Combined with that, we have Beacon. Beacon is a very strong AoE heal over time. 20% weapon damage for 10 seconds, but we have a lot of buffs to this, which are going to make it even stronger. And then, of course, we have Sacred Ground, another AoE heal over time. Heals you for 20% weapon damage every second for 15 seconds. So those are the main passive heals that I am running. Now, you can switch out Orb of Protection for more of a direct heal. Something like Light's Embrace will actually be very effective on this build because you are stacking a lot of buffs, and you do get plus 30% bonus healing done the more buffs that you have. So that's something you might want to consider substituting for Orb of Protection a little bit later on down the line. Now, the upgrades to these are quite strong. I would probably go with the upgrades to Beacon first. Like Infused Light, for example, this makes the radius much larger. And this is helpful because this can stick to an enemy. So that basically guarantees that you're going to be inside that area to get the healing that you need. And then you will want this Radiance's Blessing upgrade. It's going to make that last 5 seconds longer. For Sacred Ground, Holy Ground is good. This is going to regenerate your stamina and mana even faster while you're in that effect. And then Bless is a very nice buff. When you're actually in Sacred Ground, you're standing there, you're getting 50% more from all healing. That is fantastic. The rest of your points you're going to want to put into passives, obviously. Some of the best ones, I think, Bend Light. After a dodge, you're going to do 20% more effective healing for 5 seconds. And this basically does not have a cooldown. So anytime you dodge on your life staff, you're going to get even more bonus healing. Keep that in mind. You will definitely want Protector's Strength. So if you have a buff, you're going to heal for 10% more. And then I did unlock recently Glowing Focus. Buffs you grant last 20% longer. I was curious if that affected my duration of the heals, and it definitely does. So skills like Beacon now get a bonus 20% in duration with the Glowing Focus passive unlock. That's really helpful. Quick demo here of some of the abilities in action so you can see how the build works. We're going to drop down those heals and then switch to the Warhammer. We're fighting against Lost right now, which are weak to strike damage. So you can see those yellow numbers, getting some pretty juicy hits on these guys. We're going to go down here and then take on the mini-boss. So as far as just basic enemies, you'll be fine grouping up multiple enemies together, and that's actually what you want to do. You want to get them as close as possible. Lay down your ground heals and switch to the Warhammer and then use your stun, just like that. From there, you can heavy attack. You can see those heavy attacks are empowered, so they do lots of damage. Use your knockback there when necessary, and then just heavy attack to finish. And again, try to stay in your ground heals when possible. Here's that mini-boss with 2 extra adds. I'll go ahead and lay down the heals one more time and then switch back to the hammer. I'm going to stun again right here just to get some separation. From there, everybody's in line for a Path of Destiny. That's where you want to use it. So you can see I'm getting healed from all 3 enemies at once, and I'm able to take out the adds. The boss here is a little bit tricky. I want to keep him away from his laser beams as much as I can, and again, keep those ground heals up. Go ahead and use a stun on the boss here, and I want to kick him out, so use that knockback again. Get away from the lasers, and then try to block this spinning melee attack. My heals are ready, so again, you want to make sure your heal is down at all times. Either Beacon or Sacred Ground, either one is fine. Back to Warhammer with those heavies, and then I'm going to go ahead and knock him back again. Again, I'm just creating separation from those AoEs into the heavy attack, ground stun, heavy attacks again. Remember, you always want a heavy attack before an ability for the extra empower buff. Taking some more damage here, so I'm going to go ahead and use a potion and move back out for more heals. Make sure to block that. Got to get back into my Sacred Ground. And then Path of Destiny is ready, so we'll go ahead and use that for a nice burst heal off the path. Into the stun, we'll get a heal back from that. Into the knockback, we get another heal from that, and you can see we're almost back at full health just from the passive heals on the Warhammer. It's really good. We can go ahead and apply some final heals here to the boss. Make sure those are up. Got the heavy attack into the ground stun. Let's go ahead and knock this guy out. Into the Path of Destiny. And there you go. All right, everybody. And with that said, that is going to wrap up our build video for the War Priest, Warhammer, and Life Staff combo for New World. Hope you all enjoyed this one and found it informative. Of course, if you did, don't forget to crush that like button. And make sure you're subscribed right here with notifications turned on for many more New World builds and guides in the future. As I mentioned earlier, we do have written guides for all of our New World builds over at our website. That is rpgdojo.com. This is where you can find a lot more information on the build as far as skills, passives, perks, gems, and a whole lot more. Everything's over there in detail in the written guide. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you around in the next video.